Hello, everyone, and welcome to our district administration webinar here today, which is entitled Meeting Accountability Standards in a Complex K-12 Environment. And all this is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsor with us, Mastery Prep. Now for some quick housekeeping items, and we'll get right to the presentation. So at the end of the main presentation, there will be a live Q&A with our panelists today. You can submit your questions. You can do that below via the red Ask Question box. It's the one with the question mark in the chat bubble. And again, you can do that anytime during the event, so please feel free to do that. Also, after the Q&A, a post-event survey will launch on your screen automatically. So please stay on until the very end so you can take part in that survey. We'd love to hear from you. And lastly, you'll be pleased to know that everyone who is here today and those who registered, all of you will receive an email tomorrow from us at DA. In that email, it will include a link to the slides as well as the on-demand recording. So look out for that in your inboxes. And now it is my pleasure to pass things off to our moderator, Oliver Pope from Mastery Prep, who serves there as Chief Product Officer, and he'll take over from here. Oliver, on to you.
All right, thank you for that, Stephen. Really appreciate it, and appreciate all of you all being here for this conversation today. So the name of this webinar is Meeting Accountability Standards in a Complex K-12 Environment. So what we're going to be doing is talking about accountability standards. That's the theme of it. And so in order for us to, kind of like understand the context, I'd like to start by introducing the panel and give you a chance to learn a bit about who's going to be here to talk to you about standards. So for me, my name is Oliver Pope. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Mastery Prep. My background is in education. I've been in the industry working for about 16 years. I've had the fortune in my position, to work across the country with every type of school or district you can imagine, everything from very huge mega districts down to single high school districts with literally 2 high school seniors, graduating seniors. I've seen everything from rural to urban, and I've had the fortune to experience a lot of different learning environments and different challenges. And so that is my background. I am going to be the moderator, though, and so I'll actually be mostly asking questions of our panelists. And so I'm going to give them a chance to introduce. The very first one, Matt Burns, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. I'm Matt Burns. I am the Director of Secondary Education in Rapides Parish. I oversee 13 schools, 11 of those being high schools with an alternative program and also a virtual program. 5 of those schools are K-12 schools. With that being said, I oversee the accountability through the high schools with concentrations, of course, with all the assessments, including ACT. And again, I'm finishing up at my 18th year here, and we're seeing a lot of growth of since I've been here and with the team that's been put around me, and excited to be here with you guys and share a few things with you.
Thank you for that, Matt. Really appreciate that. And then Mary Cook, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mary Cook. I'm the ACT coordinator for Metro Nashville Public Schools. Our district has approximately 160 schools, 80,000 students. So we're one of those large districts that Oliver mentioned before. In my role, I support the implementation of our district's pre-K-12 ACT strategic plan. So we're reaching into elementary and middle schools, as well as the high schools, talking about ACT and ACT preparation. Currently, that's where I am currently. I started my career 34 years ago, and thank goodness I have a really good colorist, otherwise you'd be able to really tell that. But I was started as a middle school math teacher in Southern California, and then moved to Tennessee in 2003, where I was a school counselor for 15 years, and then moved into this particular position in 2021.
Mary, and then finally, Adam Clemens.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Clemens. I am the principal of Piedmont High School in Piedmont, Alabama. I've been here since 2013. I started teaching in 2001 and taught up until 2008 social studies, and then became an administrator. And I've been in that role since 2008, became a principal in 2013, been both in Georgia and Alabama. In 2020, I was selected as Alabama's Principal of the Year. In 2021, the National Association of Secondary School Principals, I was selected to be a finalist for that. And then in last year, I was appointed to the Board of Directors of NASSP. And one of the good things about Piedmont is that we are one of the top schools on the state report card in Alabama, and we have high poverty, but we do very well with the limited resources that we have. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here, and thank you again to all the panelists for being on the call and being here for this conversation. So I wanted to take a moment to set the stage and talk a bit about why we are here, why we are having this conversation, and why we've constructed this panel. And, I wanted to reflect back on a couple of things. One, the name of this this talk is the focus of the talk is on accountability standards and meeting those. And I mentioned before, in my background, I've had the luxury of working with schools and districts and even directly with students and teachers across the country. And I've been fortunate to, see everything from like in the mega down to the small, from rural, urban, all those different environments. And the one common theme, or one of the common themes I see that education leaders are grappling with, is accountability. It's meeting those requirements. So much so that 52% of superintendents report accountability requirements as a top source of stress. And there's no secret to it. We all know all the different challenges that you face, everything from learning loss and the recovery efforts that go into that, to burnt out teachers, or even lack of teachers or personnel, even to legislative changes to accountability standards, or even your standards and how everything is measured in your school environment. The landscape is complex and difficult. And so what we have done here is we put together a panel of diverse backgrounds to see, basically have a conversation of like, how do you tackle these things? How do you approach them? And so I've got a series of questions we're going to go through and give the panelists a chance to give their thoughts, their strategies, their approach. But before I do that, I wanted to start with a poll question. So we're going to open up a question to the audience. So I've just highlighted a poll. So on your screen, you'll have a question there. You can click actually directly on the screen and select your answer. This is very relevant to the conversation. It's also important to me because we want this to be an interactive session. This is a conversation. It's not just a bunch of panelists talking. We want to talk to you and hear from you. So not only do you have this poll, but I wanted to reiterate that Stephen brought up, there is a Q&A section. So at any point during this conversation, if you want to ask a question in the Q&A, you can ask that question in the Q&A box. If you want to talk in the chat, we'll be paying attention to that as well. Just make sure that you're reaching out there. So the question I have for you is, are you currently applying comprehensive solutions that are positively affecting student scores and accountability rankings? So what is your current plan? Are you doing something? Do you feel like you haven't yet, or are you really maybe not sure, depending on your situation? So take a moment and select an answer for that poll, and I will review the results and share the results out in a few minutes. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some more background on our panelists. So what I want to hear from each of you, and we'll start with Matt here in just a second. I want to hear a little bit more background on your school, your district. Tell us a little bit about the challenges you're facing, the makeup, the construct, that sort of thing. And so we'll start over there with Matt. Why don't you give us your background? And I'm going to highlight this question here, or this slide for you. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, well, just where I'm at, we have 42 total schools. Again, I'm the director of 13 of those schools, 11 of them being high schools. And just a huge part of where I'm at here in Louisiana when it came to accountability was, of course, you can look at all of the assessments and of course our ACT and what our main focus of things that we wanted to make sure that we're pushing to increase is just how we're going to get, and the questions that that come up is just through teacher buy-in and how we're going to provide the tools and support for students. And So for what we wanted to face is just to make sure that we're putting out good quality curriculum for these teachers, and for us as a district to be able to monitor that and to be able to effectively support that, and to be able to increase everything when it comes to the assessment. So that was our big main focus, especially my focus being hired here as director.
Thank you for that. So really great context there. So Mary, we'll switch over to you. Talk a bit about Metro Nashville.
Certainly. So as I mentioned, we have 160 schools, just over 160 schools, just over 80,000 students. And with that volume of structures and individuals, we need to have tools and plans and a mindset that has to be flexible and easy to adapt depending upon the needs of our students, which then drives the needs of our schools. There are 19 high schools that I work with most directly. There's more, we have more than 19 high schools, but some of them are very small and specialized programs. But the ones that I support directly are larger comprehensive schools and our magnet schools. And each one of those schools has a different personality and a different set of student needs. We have schools that have a high propensity of students with economic challenges. We have schools that have a high concentration of EL learners. We have schools that have some of the top performing students in the country academically. And so we need to have tools and strategies and approaches that can meet the needs of all of those students and also be able to address needs in a consistent manner, though, so that all schools are receiving the same message and the same support. It's just that that support might look different school to school and student to student. And we also have some schools that offer a dedicated ACT prep class, some schools that can't fit that into their master's schedule, but all of our students need ACT prep support. And so finding a different mechanism of being able to support classroom teachers who are teaching ACT prep or students who need to do it individually on their own in an asynchronous type of environment, it was important to us. And so that's why we have the tools that we do, is so we can meet those different needs.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. It's very fascinating. And that will be one of the things that we'll be getting into later on, is that how do you deal with that diverse setup of schools and structure there. So Adam, tell us a bit about what you got going on.
So we are a rural school district, fairly small. We have about 1,100 total students in our district. There are 3 schools, the elementary, middle, then the high school. And we're just shy of 350 students here at the high school. We are 66% free and reduced. We're kind of in between Chattanooga, Birmingham, and Atlanta, kind of ABC right there in the middle. Unfortunately, we are on just a 2-lane road and no railroads, nothing that comes through here to support the infrastructure. So the schools and the nursing home are the largest employers in my community. We do have 2 red lights, which we're proud of. And we have a lot of students because we are so successful athletically, sometimes changing their mindset to also be successful academically has been a struggle, because so many of my folks are first generational college students, if they do go to college, which is about 50-50 on if they do.
Yeah, that's an important topic too that we're going to be discussing is lead right into the conversation of equity. How do we approach students that have these types of backgrounds that and in shifting mindset? It's a big part of the process. So, and I'll tell you, I lived in a town when we had 1 stoplight and they took it away and replaced it with a stop sign. So we were very upset when that happened. So I understand. So let's take a look at our poll results, and we'll see, what we see here. And it's an interesting divide. So not a surprise to me, based on my experience, a little over a third of the audience, you are doing something. You actually have a plan, and I really want to talk a lot. We will talk a lot about that comprehensive solution that's having a positive effect, which is excellent to hear. And then a third, you're not so sure, and that could be coming from, do we have a system that you would consider comprehensive, or do we have a plan that's working? It's kind of a question mark. And then a little under a third just saying, hey, not yet. And that's really I'm excited about that because that's what we're going to be talking about. Is we're going to be sharing the different types of plans that have been put in place to get success in every type of environment you can imagine, from small to large. We're going to be discussing that today. So that's great. And that's going to bring me into my very first question. And we're going to be talking about the students. We're going to start there because I think that, everything has to start with the focus on the students. And the question I have, and I'm going to open up with Matt, you'll go first. And, essentially from my perspective, we've talked already a little bit about the diversity we see in our students, the skill sets, the ability level, the backgrounds, the access. And so my question for you is in your district, how do you personalize the learning for your students? How do you take that into account? And how has that impacted your success?
Well, I think we all can agree that not every student has the same goals. So it's up to us as a district and as a school to make sure we're meeting those individual needs. For us, and our focus has really been with our work keys to make sure that we're getting the job skills for our students, and also at the same time the focus of our ACT. And so what we've done and what I've seen that has helped us is now to be able to personalize and customize for each student. We're now starting our ACT test with ninth graders. So we're starting that individual plan, the true test with 9, 10, 11, and 12th graders. Of course, in 8th grade, we are doing some pre-tests, but we are making sure what we're doing is we're getting these tests to try to impact their future very early. And again, the students that are not, everyone could use the scores for their ACT, but the ones that are not going to benefit as much and they're looking more in the workforce, we really concentrate on those work keys. And what we're doing with both of those are we're making sure we're very intentional with how we're doing that, with making sure that each student is getting the needs, if it's through the RTI programs that is embedded within their classes. And I'm seeing in our district a very good impact for these students because of starting earlier, because when it gets to this point, we're starting to talk accountability, what they're going to want to be doing. We wait too late. And I've been fault of that earlier in my career. And now starting earlier, we're seeing a bigger increase in everything that they're doing through graduation rate, through what they're doing on the accountability side for their ACT, their scores, of course, their assessments, and what they want to do in their future, because we're starting that early in 9th grade with test, with ACT test and seeing the increase in that. So I see that being a very, very positive thing that we've done here in our district.
That's a great point, and I think that echoes a lot of what you're hearing from Adam too, with the situation of you have to think about the student goals, right? Because in the student mindset, you got to meet them where they're at. It's really interesting, and I want you to hold on to that thought about the starting early, because it's going to come up with another one of our questions. So I want to make sure we hear from more on that in a minute. Mary, same kind of question to you. Again, and you already talked about this, the diversity you have in your it's Nashville, right? Metro Nashville, very large program. So how do you account for that? The most advanced students in the country and the students who are just absolutely struggling. Like, what's your philosophy on how you personalize it?
And so this is where the Mastery Prep True Score platform really shines for us. Once those students take that first practice test in there, they can then see exactly which skills they need to capitalize on and kind of focus on. And then, so our students that are struggling, that might have some academic gaps for whatever reason, and they're just striving to reach that composite score of a 21, which is a magic number in our state, because there's some state lottery scholarship funds available if they hit a 21 composite. And so if we have students that are struggling to reach there, they can work on some of those more basic skills that for whatever reason they don't have in their toolkit currently. And the platform will help them identify that. But then, like I said, we also have some very high-performing, academically performing students in our district as well, who are striving for those 30-plus scores, because that means even larger institutional scholarships once they do get to their colleges. And the platform will do that for them too. And quite frequently, those are the students that don't have an ACT prep class in their schedule with that dedicated time. And so having a tool that allows them to do this self-study and track their progress, and that teachers and school counselors can check in on as well on the background in case the student's having an issue. That type of flexibility and that type of support is just golden for all of our students, regardless of where they're performing. And then our EL students, being able to not only work on their English skills alone, but also hearing the videos that are embedded in the platform will help them improve their language skills while they're also working on their ACT skills simultaneously. And so we found having this one tool meet multiple needs has really been helpful for us. And we're looking for ways to grow and expand it even further. Right now, if the teachers aren't teaching a dedicated ACT prep class, they haven't engaged with the platform quite as much, but there is a lot of resources available to them. And so that's my next round of outreach, is supporting all of the teachers, regardless of their teaching load or their teaching assignment, and show them you really can embed this within your platform too. So then that will reach a different population of students. And so that flexibility has just been tremendous for us.
Yeah, so, to kind of pull that out, like, essentially starting with assessment kind of echoes the start early concept in a sense of got to know what's going on, and then allowing students to, funnel into their own needs. That's excellent. Adam, do you want to add anything to this? Like, what's your take on the personalization?
So, as Mary kind of alluded to, we start taking the mastery prep assessment when students are finishing the 8th grade. I talked to the middle school principal, and we implement what we call a mock ACT, but it's through the mastery prep assessment. And so ultimately, these freshmen are coming in with data points that then my teachers can make instructional plans. And we do that 3 times a year for my 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. Now, my 11th graders have to take the real ACT their spring of their junior year. So coming next month, my juniors will take the real ACT. But we focus in on making sure that we get good, valid data out of the mastery prep program. And then my teachers will use that because it breaks it down by the classrooms, and it breaks it down even by the individual student, to be able to create learning paths that they can then take and learn more. And I've talked to students, I've talked to teachers who verify that this is what has allowed them to increase their scores. We have built an ACT culture here at our school because starting back in 2015, the state made that a part of our accountability, where they take in 10th grade the ACT, pre-ACT, and then in 11th grade they will take the real ACT. And so we have first period. Every single one of my juniors takes ACT prep. Every single one of my classes, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, we have bell ringers that we get from the mastery prep workbooks. And it's one of those things where we really try to build an ACT culture, and we talk about it frequently. Now, not all of my students are going to go to college. But I will say this, and I was talking to U.S. Secretary Cardona, Secretary of Education, just 2 days ago. I happened to be in D.C., and the question was brought up by someone else about just how we have such a big push with college and going to college and stuff. And while it is true, we do need a lot of folks to go into career tech fields and not necessarily maybe have a college education. But he did say this, and I thought it was an interesting point, and that's why it is incumbent upon us, especially in areas of poverty. He said that on average, for a lifetime, a student who goes to college will make $1 million more than a student who doesn't. And so I look at it as being able to provide an opportunity for my students. Again, a lot of them are first generational students that will go to college to be able to have one, belief in themselves that, hey, I can do this. 2, get some finances to be able to do it. And one of the things we struggled with I'll say quickly, is finding something that could give us good, actionable, and valid data to be able to measure our students and to try to figure out how to have personalized instruction. And so we tried some other programs. And then when I found out about Mastery Prep, it was the perfect fit. It gave us and my teachers the tools and what we needed to get good, valid data, which is very difficult to do in secondary, and also to be able to have data that could be actionable and, to be able to run with it and to be able to implement it in the classrooms. And that's the good thing. It's an easy thing for my teachers to look at, to get data, to be able to make small groups based off of that data, and to be able to personalize the learning and differentiate, which is one of the most difficult things to do in education, to be able to differentiate, because now you got valid data that you can take and do action with.
Absolutely. And that feeds us right into our next question. So I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into that. Thank you for that, Adam. And I'm going to toss this one over to Mary. Adam brought up a really good point about, and really all three of you talked a lot about, building a culture, starting early, getting that assessment ahead of time. And I find this part really fascinating. I think it's one of my experience, one of the difference makers is implementing a comprehensive plan, right? Doing something that goes beyond trying to just solve the problem in the last few weeks before the test is given, right? Before your accountability exam is given. And so my question for you, Mary, is, how's your district, how is Metro Nashville benefiting from a larger, more comprehensive approach than, say, like doing a Band-Aid solution like a week before the test?
Right. So Metro Nashville is taking a really long view with a pre-K-12 ACT strategic plan. And so one of the things that we've implemented is a K-12 ACT Educator Academy, where I have about 20 people per cohort, pretty evenly spread from elementary, middle, and high schools. And we're giving those instructors in-depth ACT knowledge and skills. So they go through ACT's instructional mastery training, and we developed an ACT basics training. And then we take them to an ACT conference as well. And the elementary school teachers, fascinatingly enough, come out to be actually the most enthused because they're making direct connections to what they're teaching in their third grade or fourth grade classroom to the skills that the students need to have in order to be successful on the ACT. And so our view is really long range. It's not even just a year out. We're impacting kids before they even hit double-digit age levels, and helping to develop skills in teachers that will then translate to skills for students. And then for our actual high school students, using the Mastery Prep platform, absolutely. Our current use is 11th and 12th grade, but starting next school year, we're opening it up to 9 through 12. And so all of our students will have access to it. And then also, we're starting to use the pre-ACT and pre-ACT 8-9. So we have additional data points that the kids will have for themselves and see how they're projected to perform. Through the efforts here over the last couple of years, we're starting to see a turnaround in our test scores and our results. We did have a pretty significant slide, like many districts did in the COVID years, but we're starting to see that turn around. We're kind of at the bottom of the parabola and starting to see that uptick on the other side of the parabola. We have the percent of our students scoring a 21 composite score or higher that I mentioned earlier. When you're talking over 5,000 students in a class, we've moved that just under a point from 24.4% of our students to 25.1% of our students getting that 21 or higher. Now we're nowhere near close to where we want to be, but we're seeing the direction go the correct way. Our average scores have gone up about a half a point. Again, when you're averaging across 5,000 students, a half a point move in the right direction is pretty significant. So we're thrilled with that. But we have a lot of work to do, but we feel like we're heading in the right direction.
Right, that's really exciting, and it's good to hear from very specifically from that perspective of like overcoming that loss during the pandemic time period too. I'm actually gonna jump over to Matt for this next question. And let's talk. So, Matt, you had mentioned a comprehensive approach in your answer to your first question. I wanted to give you a chance to come back to that. So, what are y'all doing for your approach down there in
And I did. I talked a little
Philippines?
bit about it already. Just kind of and kind of like marriage, we do. We're starting early in the junior high, of course, is where we start with mastery prep. Of course, has been very beneficial. Starting with True Score with our 8th grade and looking at an approach and not the band-aid approach and piecemeal, I guess you could say. Starting with 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. But what I really see that's really benefited us too is what we're doing with mastery preps with our high schools with our boot camps, and this isn't just something that that we just say, hey, we're going to do a boot camp this day and hopefully it put a couple hours and go from there. This is something that's strategically put into place a couple weeks before the test with our students. Each school gets one boot camp for the fall, one for the spring. The principals are able to use it how they would like. It's for 6 hours. And I see that just putting that along with what I'm going to say comprehensive approach of what we're doing with ACT and embedding that within our curriculum, within our classes. For instance, high school, for the high school people out there that's just that's trying to see where you could put in that ACT to better your students. We're putting it in our Algebra 2 classes. We're looking at our Algebra 3, Algebra 4 classes. We even put it into some chemistry. So what we're doing is we're being very strategic, very intentional about that. And with the embedding that within our master schedule, along with those boot camps that we're giving each school to be able to focus on the certain amount of kids that they want. If they want to focus on the scores, if it's the 16 to 18s they're working on, or the 19s to 20 to 21s they're working on, if they want to look at the higher level of the 22s to 25s to better them, it's up to that school. I'm seeing from our side of things, from the data purposes, since COVID, kind of like Mary was talking about, what we were under 18. We went from an 18.1 year after COVID. Now we're at a 19.5 using mastery prep, using those boot camps, embedding the material of the supplemental material from mastery prep into our curriculum. So I'm seeing a really big jump of being comprehensive with that and not just kind of using just a bell ringer here and a bell ringer there. We're really embedding this in an everyday instructional day for our students. Excellent.
Thank you for that. And Adam, this next question is for you. I wanted to expand on this concept of a continuous approach. And I wanted to get your take on this. First is that, we're talking about applying a continuous approach. I think of that as like a year-round process. And you'd mentioned 3 times a year you're giving this exam. You have this, a long view, kind of like Mary's mentioned, like a long view on this process. And so I was curious if you had any thoughts on what are you doing to have that continuous process going?
So for one, you got to have that puzzle top. What do you want the end to look like? And starting to put those puzzles in pieces, and to get it to get to where you want it to look like. So you got to have that vision and to be able to say, hey, this is where I want to go. One of the things that the Mastery Prep program does for us is it allows me to see almost in real time how we're going toward that puzzle top. And I say puzzle top, what's that magic score that we're wanting for our school district, because it counts for 50% of my state report card. And so that's one of the things that we want to do. You can buy a treadmill for $3,000 and you can set it in your living room. And if you don't use it to fidelity, you're going to continue not to lose weight. If you purchase any program, you got to use it to fidelity. You got to have buy-in. That's a good thing about what Mastery Prep provides is not only is the information good and valid, but also great professional development. My teachers, one of the first things they said about Mastery Prep when we had the first PD is they said that was the very best professional development that they had ever had. And that's very reassuring when we bought a product and we've spent money on it. I mean, I like to have fiscal responsibility and to know that we're going to get a bang for a buck. And we do snapshots. I'm in the classroom all the time, making sure that my students are what they're doing, but I'm also looking to see what programs my teachers are using. And so we're all the time looking to see how are they using the different programs that we have purchased. And so we do that throughout the year to be able to monitor what we've purchased and just to be able to see that folks are using it to fidelity. Like I said, the good thing is it's a good, easy program to use. You have good professional development, but you got to monitor it. I mean, you got to inspect what you expect. And we do that. And that helps us to make sure that we're using that treadmill that we purchased.
I love the treadmill analogy as someone who has committed that sin a few times in my life. So
I'm
very
there
much
too.
That's right. Mine was the rowing machine. That was my big sin, especially during the pandemic. So, but that's a great insight. And I think that Mary, I want to go to you next, and because you have a very long view, like as you mentioned. And what I want to do with this question, I want you to think about how would you tell people who are maybe attracted to the ease of the triage solution? Like, what is the advice about resisting that? The advice to stick to the continuous approach? What are some of the benefits that you feel you're seeing in your district?
So it's easy to jump into putting out fires because that's our reaction, is whatever's in front of us gets our attention. And we need to look at preventing the fires to start off with. And that's kind of where we're at with our long range view. Because if you expend all your energy with what's immediate and right in front of you, you can miss out on serving some other needs that might get masked by whatever is urgent. And so we're trying to put together strategies that support teachers. I don't work, unfortunately, I don't work directly with students anymore. I loved my students, and they just brought a whole different perspective. But by working with the teachers, I'm able to give them skills and strategies that will impact more students over time, because the teachers tend to stay consistent, where the students will come and go. They'll graduate out and they'll move on to their other parts of their lives. And so by making sure that we are addressing long range needs, we're providing a level of security and a level of consistency where our students know that they're going to get a quality product and a quality experience because the teachers have the training. I want to, absolutely what Adam said, the PD that we've gotten from Mastery Prep on how to use the platform as well as insight into the ACT has been stellar. The responses that we get have been just incredible. And that's part of our long range view, is if the teachers are having good experiences and they're getting skills and they're getting knowledge, that's going to be replicated in how they teach and how they work with our students. And that's what we want the most, is good quality instruction and good quality information that's getting to our students. And then that prevents the fires, because the students are already building skills from a very young age. And then when it comes time to sit for the ACT, it is an accountability measure for us, for the state. But when they sit for it in 11th grade, it's not going to be new. It's not going to be scary. It's going to be something that they feel ready for and confident about approaching, and can perform the best that they can if they're comfortable and not scared. And that's kind of where we're aiming for.
That's excellent. And I think that that's a great segue to the next question. So Matt, this one is going to go to you, and because it relates to students. And I think that the concept of like removing the fear and the stress and the confusion and things that go with that, it's a component of this. But the question I have for you is, how do you ensure equity with your students as you're making this drive, as you're pushing at the district level, this big picture push? How do you keep your eye on the ball with your students and their different backgrounds and access?
Well, and that's the thing too, coming from the district, is making sure that each student's getting that chance and that opportunity to be able to be successful. Even when I was principal, and it was making sure, because everyone was going to take that test. On the district side now, I want to make sure, funding wise, of course, that's what I'm rolling with, and making sure that we're doing that, because what we're doing is seeing at the end game, the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you could say, is where they're starting and where we're finishing. And with that, and with that being said, it's and embedding that into the master schedules, and talking about mastery prep with our PDs, and we're talking about the instructional books that we're getting, that we're putting into the RTI programs, everything that we're doing with mastery prep for ACT, and making sure everyone is getting that opportunity to do that and seeing that success. And again, it starts with data, and sitting there and seeing where they started and where they're at and where they're ending. And I can just say that, the commitment that we're giving to the principals on the district level, to be able to express to their teachers, which are the teachers to their students. And, I can just see on our level, from what we're doing to ensure every student support is working, is being able to give them the opportunity multiple times and throughout the year. And it kind of goes back to the other question, but I believe as schools and as districts, being able to start early with your students, to be able to give them that opportunity, to give them everything that they need through and mastery prep of what they provide. And you will see at the end of the long term, at the end, you're going to see a difference in the accountability and the grades, because of what you've done to prepare them for that. And I can see a huge difference of where we've started and where we're at now, because of what we've done and what we've implemented, district wide.
That's excellent. And I think, the real answer is all of these questions really interlace with each other, right? And that's, I'm always fascinated by the balance that you have to take, because it's a complex problem, right? And how you tackle solving an aggregate issue, right? Which is this district accountability, but via thousands of people, right? Students and teachers and administration. It's a complex problem, and but you're right, they're all connected. Like they do feed into each other. Adam, I wanted to turn to you on this one, because it's an interesting situation. You'd already raised your students' background and their focus and their approach. And so, a lot of that's influenced, you're a rural school, right? You're the two stoplights. A lot of that's influenced by, the culture of your family, your view on yourself as a student. And so I'm just curious if you need any special insight into keeping your eye on that equity issue.
So, being a high poverty school, we do understand that many are first generational students and to go to college. And one of the things that we try to do is we use the mastery prep data to be able to identify students and to be able to say, hey, these students have made like a 25 on the mastery prep mock ACT that we had. And we try to encourage those students to go take the real ACT. And if they financially can afford it, especially if they're not the 10th graders, we go ahead and I'll pay for them and help provide the transportation to the real ACT center, because I want them, I think Matt said it earlier, I want them to be exposed to the real ACT and to get over their nervousness. Now, we do that with the mock one, but this allows me to help identify some of those students that have potential, that we can be able to help them go, and because of mastery prep, be able to say, hey, go take the real ACT as a 9th or 10th grader, and then, continue on to take it, and hopefully your ACT will continue to improve, and that will open a lot more doors financially, scholarship wise, for you to be able to go to college and so forth. And so that's one of the things that we have been able to implement and really seeing great positive results to be able to do that. We did get a state grant this past year to be able to also offer the real ACT to all of our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. So this past year, I was able to do that and not have to pay for it out of my general fund, which I was very thankful for. But like I said, it allows the mastery prep data allows me to have a puzzle top for where I want to go, and I emphasize it every Friday in my Friday updates. I've got a little GIF that I send out and meme that I send out to my staff of where we want to be. That's the puzzle top. And just to reiterate, we do snapshots. We go in there, we make sure that folks are using it to fidelity, because if you don't, you're just throwing it out there and you're hoping. And you gotta back up hope with actual expectations and inspections as well.
Yeah, I like that. I think you used it earlier. You inspect what you expect. That was something that was your phrase. I like that a lot. That's a good point too. And yeah, and the concept of, easing the friction. I think a lot of the experience for students who don't come from, a family who has, like, I was a first generation. I'd come from a family who didn't understand these exams. There's just a question, and it's just that friction point, that you have to overcome. And I was fortunate to have a school that supported me in that. And so appreciate hearing those stories all the time, those strategies. So I want to move on. The last question that I prepared for the panel is goes back to the teacher buy-in. And I'm going to start with Mary, because you had mentioned, talked a lot about your teachers, even the elementary school teachers. And I wanted to hear if you could expand on your approach to get the buy-in from teachers. What I experienced at Mastery Prep, my history, like working in different schools, is that if you don't get that buy-in, right, you don't get the teachers on board with the curriculum or the tools you're using, or even the philosophy, the approach, they're the foot soldiers, right? They're on the front line. Like, you just can't get the success you really want. That's been my experience. So I'm curious if you want to expand your approach about how you get that buy-in, how do you get those teachers on board?
Certainly. So our district had adopted use of Mastery Prep prior to me taking this particular role. So I started in this position toward the end of March of 2022, and never, ever give teachers something new to do in March. Never. I mean, that's the end of the school year. But we had the Mastery Prep program already, and they'd actually had it for a couple of years prior to me coming into the position. But the first thing I did was took a survey of the teachers teaching ACT Prep and saying, okay, what worked for you this year? What didn't work for you this year? And overwhelmingly, they indicated that they loved the platform, but they just didn't know what to do with it. They were kind of overwhelmed by the number of tools and the number of directions they could go with it. And so based on that information, I pulled together a team of 4 classroom teachers that were there working with the students. And over the summer, I had those 4, and I had one from each content area, so English, math, science, and reading. We put together a kind of a scope and sequence or a pacing guide that would help the teachers the next school year understand, okay, you have this tool, here's how we want you to use it. Do this first, do this second. And it really kind of came down to the basics. Give the students a practice test so you know where they stand. And once you examine those results, then go into a subject area and concentrate for about a month on that subject area. Most of our schools teach ACT Prep for 1 semester. So it's a limited amount of time. And so 1 month per subject. And then at the end of the term, give another one of the practice tests so the students can see how they grow. And just doing that one simple thing allowed the use of the platform to increase, but it also gave the teachers confidence. Oh, now I know what to do with this tool. I know how to use it. You can hand someone a hammer, but if you don't tell them what to pound into the wall, they're going to be putting holes everywhere. And we wanted the teachers to have a very strategic thing in mind, a strategic approach, and that really has made all the difference. And we've seen use of the platform increase. And while I can't, say it's correlational, it's not a cause effect, but we have seen results come about over the last couple of years. And I'm confident that a lot of it has to do because we have a consistent tool that teachers know how to use because we've given them a roadmap.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Mary. It's really fascinating. I think that roadmap is the key, and it's we talk about teacher buy-in, but and sometimes from an administrative perspective, and even from Mastery Prep as someone who services schools and districts and teachers, we talk about it as a buy-in as sometimes it's the teacher's responsibility, but really it's two-way street, right? We have to bring them in. We have to give them something to buy, right? And so I think that roadmap concept is a really great way of phrasing it. So, we're getting close to the hour. And so I want to go ahead and pause for audience questions. So just a reminder, if you have any questions, we're going to answer a couple audience questions now. If you have any questions you want, feel free to pop that into the Q&A box. If you pop that in there, we will share some questions around and just get perspective from the panel. If you have a specific one for someone on the panel specifically, just put that into your question. Other than that, we'll go ahead and get started. So I've got a couple questions here, and I will start with this first question here. This is, and Matt, I'm gonna pose this one to you. Okay. So it says, with many ed tech tools being used in schools, how do you convince decision makers to make the right investments in curriculum and products that will make a difference for students?
Well, and that kind of goes back to, that's a great question, Stephen. That's really good, because I mean, at the end of the day, it goes back to your buy-in and how you're gonna, is this investment, is this gonna be that's gonna make a difference for students? And on the district level, it's having a solution for that, right? And the why for that. I think that's a big reason. A lot of people, you'll hear one new curriculum comes in and be like, hey, this sounds pretty good. Wow, they got pretty cool PowerPoints. Let's roll with it. Well, that's not going to get any type of buy-in, or that's not going to really give you that. Is this going to make a difference for students? So I think having that why and having support of that data to be able to make sure of that. What I like to do here, what I do here on the district level for the curriculum piece, I have the task force, and that task force consists of a teacher or even two teachers of every school that get together, and we discuss to get that buy-in, to get those opinions, to make sure that it is best for those students. With that being said, I've also had, with some type of new curriculum, we do a pilot program with one or two schools to be able to see, hey, is this really working? Let's grab this data. Let's get this task force. Let's all get together and throw your opinions on. So to answer your question, Stephen, which is really good, I think the right investment to see if it makes a difference for students is really hearing from the teachers, seeing the data that supports that. Of course, on the district side of the financial part of it, of course, is always going to matter. But at the end of the day, if you see success and you see that it's working, or you feel that the teachers that are to me the most important opinion of it, because they're going to be the ones in the fire, and that's why we have that task force. And I see that's why we do see a lot of success with the new curriculum that we've been pushing, especially even with Mastery Prep. That has been a big one. And of course, out of the 11 high schools that's on that task force, all 11 are bought in on that, and we've seen success due to the data and have a solution of where we want to be with it.
Thank you for that, Matt. That's really interesting. And again, it goes back to that teacher buy-in. Like, I think having them, roped into the process of selection is a really great, it tracks really well with success in our experience over here. I have another question here. This one I'm going to, and anyone can hop in on follow-ups for this and make it a little more conversational, but I'm going to put it to Adam. Adam, it says, we've primarily done prep sessions right before test days. And I'm curious, what were the first things you did to start rolling out a more sustainable program? Were there barriers to starting?
The first thing that we did was create an ACT culture for our whole school. And everybody, including my elective folks, we focus in on vocabulary and make sure that we're teaching vocabulary that would be possibly tested on the ACT. And those type of questions that you see on the ACT, to make sure that they're using that same language so that our students, when they see, analyze, evaluate some of those higher questions, that they aren't afraid of it and that they know what it's being asked. ACT culture is one of the first things. Second thing is having the good product to be able to implement. As I said, we struggled finding that good product until we found Mastery Prep, and I'm a firm believer in it. What I do hate about accountability is it creates competition between schools, and a lot of times I'm like, do I want to share all this information with other folks? But I'm such a believer, and it's all about the kids and all of our kids in America, and so I firmly believe that Mastery Prep provides that support. I mean, you're going to have good data with it. You're going to be able to, we can buy some workbooks to use in the classroom if you want for bell ringers. It creates individualized lesson plans for the kids. But here's the thing, for teacher buy-in, it's got to be user-friendly. And my teachers have 4 preps even, because we're such a small school, and they only have 45 minutes for planning. Now, we do one data day a month. So my teachers come in, we look at the data, the ACT data, and this is 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, all of them who are going toward that spring ACT test, and we look at that data. But we're always talking about the data. We're always looking at how is everybody contributing. As an administrator, my assistant principal and I are in the classrooms observing to making sure, and that's what we're looking for in our snapshots that we do every week. But I'll say this, everybody, your ESSER funds run out September 30th, and we have used Mastery Prep data to help us spend our ESSER funds. Those students who are deficient in certain ACT skills, Oxford commas, being able to read to fidelity and so forth, we use that data, and those tutors that we've paid for with ESSER funds, we can give them the information that we bring in, retired teachers and stuff that we brought in and said, hey, here's the Mastery Prep data. This is what they're lacking. This is what you need to be specific on and using. So you have until September 30th to use your money, and as long as you've got it locked in, you can continue using it. So that's a big suggestion I have as we get closer to September 30th, is trying to use some of those ESSER funds to really focus in and have that puzzle top of where you want to be on your ACT scores for your school.
Great, thank you for that. And we are coming to the close of time, so I wanted to just drop a little message in here. So we'd love to hear from you all. I'm going to hand this back over to Stephen in just a second, but we've got the link over there on the screen. It's info@matchprep.com. That'll be on the bio as an actual clickable link here in a second. But I just wanted to say thank you all for attending. I really appreciate the participation in the chat. And first of all, thank you to our panelists. You did an excellent job, really great insight, and I appreciate the thoughtful answers and all the effort that y'all put into being here and in your busy time. And this is a busy time of year, so appreciate everyone being a part of this panel. And Stephen, I'll hand it back over to you to do the wrap up.
Definitely. Thank you, Oliver. And I'll also mirror what you said. I mean, this was a great talk, obviously, on such an important topic. So again, I'll copy what you said. This was a great one. And so even though we are at the top of the hour, if we didn't get to your questions today, that's not a problem. We at DA will be sharing them with our friends at Mastery Prep to answer your questions at some point in the future. So and also too, as I go through my closing slides in just a moment, if any more questions come to mind, feel free to put them in the Ask Question panel at the bottom of your screen. Again, like I said, I'll make sure they're pushed forward. And also, don't forget, as I said in the intro, to stay on until the very end. So after my closing slides, so you can participate in our post-event survey. It will launch directly on your screen. Like I said, we'd love to hear from you. But first off, I just want to thank you again, Oliver, for moderating. And yes, to all of our other panelists here today for sharing your expertise and time with us today. We really do appreciate it. And of course, another thank you to Mastery Prep. And I'd like to take a minute to thank you, our audience, for joining us here today as well. For those of you who enjoyed our presentation, we have more webinars like this one that are provided by us here at District Administration, which is the leader in editorial coverage of news, trends, as well as current issues in K-12. We have a wide range of readers, such as yourselves, who subscribe for free to DA, and they stay up to date with us in print via our magazine, as well as online via our newsletters, our DA Ed Talks, new podcasts, and webinars like this one. Also, if you would like to watch this presentation again, or for those of you who believe what you heard will be helpful to your colleagues, and I'm sure that is very much the case, you'll be pleased to know that our team at DA, we will be sending you an email later tomorrow. In that email, it will include the on-demand recording of this presentation, as well as a link to the slides. So look out for that. So with that, on behalf of DA, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you to our panelists. This was a great discussion. Thank you.